Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we'll continue the discussion of objects and review other blocks that are in the object category. And then we'll actually start experimenting and see how objects can be used, how they work together with other different data types, how to iterate over objects, and all other cool stuff. So far we have learned how to create an object, how to set a property in an object, how to retrieve a property from an object. And those are really the fundamental operations. There are some additional blocks that are left to be reviewed. Specifically, we have here assign object properties. We'll talk about it today, and delete object property and get object keys. These two we will leave a little bit for later. They are coming in one of the future lessons. So let's start with delete object property. As the name of this block suggests, you can identify an object and then delete a specific property. So in here we have a object that represents a person, and we print it out right after it was created. But then let's say we want to delete the property is retired. So let's take this person object and then identify the property to be deleted, is retired, and then print out right after that to see what that object looks like. So as you can see here, there are two lines, one with the is retired property, the other one without. There's going to be an interesting thing if you were to expand these, like this one. Yes, it doesn't have the is retired. If you expand this one, it doesn't really show is retired either, which is kind of strange at first, because at the top in this kind of the brief printout, it is there, but when you open it up, it is not there. So what happens is this delete object property actually updates that very object that is on that page inside of this codeless logic. When you expand this, that variable is being inspected and that property is not there, therefore it is not even print out. So at the time when we printed that output, it was there. When we click this to open it up, it is being inspected by this environment, by the browser in this case, and the property is not there, therefore it is not listed. So this one will be a more accurate output. But the point of this exercise was to demonstrate that you can basically identify a property in an object and it will be deleted by using this specific block. The next one that I'd like to review is actually get object keys, this one. So object keys are essentially the names of the properties. In our case, for this object, the keys are name, age, and is retired. Whenever you use this block, it will produce a list of strings, and then those strings are going to be essentially the keys of your object. And then guess what? When you get that list of keys, we know that we can create an iterator for that list, and we can go over, and then for each individual property we can actually extract the value. So here at first, let me demonstrate how this get object keys works, and then we will do something interesting with it. Before I do this, let me actually move some of this stuff into a separate function, and let's call this function delete property, and then this will go right into here. And since I'm not invoking this function, this logic will never get executed. It just kind of stays there, just so we know that we tried it. But for now, let's add this get object keys to the print, and then the object that we will be getting the keys for is going to be person. Let's run this logic. And in the output, as you can see, we got this array or a list with three values, name, age, and is retired, which is exactly the names of the keys in that specific object. Since this is a list, what we can do is we can actually iterate over that list. And then iteration over that list can be done with any of the blocks that we have used so far. And then if you remember, in the lists category, these are, we can do the filtering, we can do mapping, we can do sorting. But another thing that you can do, which we actually haven't done yet, but it was there all along, is in the loops category. Okay, there is this special block that allows us to iterate over items in the list. I kind of overlooked it, but now is a good opportunity to actually try it. So connect it here, and the list that we're working with, you can just get it like this. In fact, this print can go away. So see, we basically connected get object keys to that iterator. And then in here, let's rename this J variable to call it person property name. Oops, got this comma in there, name. Now it looks good. So what's going to happen here is this block, which is really just a loop over the elements of our list, gets the actual list, which is a collection of property names. And then for every single step in that loop, person property name variable will be getting the actual value from that list. So in the first iteration of that loop, person property name will be the word name. And then for the second iteration, it's going to be age, and then is retired. Guess what? Knowing the property name, we can actually extract the value from that object. And that's something that we learned in the previous lesson. In fact, if we go here, this get property of will give us the actual value. So in this logic in here, we can actually create a logic that will just print and inspect the entire object. Okay. And in here, what we will do is let's bring this print back. Okay. And we will say this object property. In fact, let's just use this create text with, and it will say object property name, and then we will display that property name. Can you guess where the property name is? If you guessed it, that it's inside of this variable, you are absolutely correct. So this line will print out property name, and then the subsequent line will print out property value. And to get the property value, we use this get property. This identifies the actual property name for which we want to get the value, and we need to specify the object for which we will be doing that. Okay. Also, let's add a little divider just to kind of visually separate those properties with something like this. And let's run this logic. There you go. So here we have object property name. Name, value is Bob. Age, value is 35. Is retired, value is false. So this is kind of a primitive way to output what that object contains. Although the simplest way is just do print and then just print that object. You will get exactly the same result. But the point here was that you can obtain in your logic in the runtime a collection of all the keys that the object contains, and then for each individual key you can retrieve the value. So that's how you go about getting those object keys. And another thing that we learned in this lesson is how to iterate over a collection of values. In this case, we use this for each loop. Finally, one more block that I'd like to review in this video is this assign object properties. What this block does is essentially merges two objects together. For instance, if we have a variable that contains an object and we have this person, and let's say we have some other variable or we have some other object that has some other properties, and you just want to take those properties of that second object and then merge them, assign them to this object. Okay. This could be a brand new object that we can just create. In fact, let's do that. So let's create a new object. Okay. And let's add a couple of properties. Okay. For instance, we have name, age, and is retired. How about we have phone number? Okay. And another one, how about we have employer? So these are two properties. Let's add values to these properties. Phone number, and then employer. How about it is Beck Corporation? All right, so at this point we have target, which is our person object, and then the source is where we're going to get those new properties from, and assign to target, that's going to be this brand new object. After that is done, let's print out what this does. In fact, let me get this loop stuff out of the way. Let me create another function and print out properties. We'll call that. This will get moved into this function. We're not using it. We're just storing it for posterity, or in case if we ever need to go back. In fact, they can be moved out just so they're not in front of our eyes. We're focusing just on this. All right. Since we're not calling those functions, they can just safely sit there and do absolutely nothing, yet we do not need to remove them. So in here, created a new object that is person, has these three properties. Then we're assigning properties of this yet another object into person. And finally, we're printing it out. Let's run it. And as you can see, now person has employer and has phone number. Okay. Here's another little cool thing. In here, you can see it has this return updated object. And that becomes quite useful because in our codeless logic, we can combine those two together. Okay. So this will actually update person, but it will also return it back for some other operation. So if I rerun this, it's going to be exactly the same result. That will basically show this updated person. Here's another interesting thing that we can do. Let's say in this object, the source from where we're getting those properties, how about we add a property that already exists, such as age, okay? And then for age, let's say that we put a different age, 38, okay? So age from this new object will be overriding the age that is already in our person object. Let's run it. And as you can see, the age got updated. So the assign object properties does two things. One, it adds the properties that are not there, and it updates the properties that are already there. So the original object had age, and the new object has age. The new object overrode whatever was in the target. Okay. By the way, another thing that you need to keep in mind is the type of individual property may change. In here, age is a number, okay? However, if you were to modify, for whatever reason, age to be a string, okay? So we're basically, it's still 38, okay? In fact, it could be 38 written like this, all right? Doesn't really make sense. Looks kind of ugly, but the point is that you can update the type of individual property. Let's run it. And as you can see, now the age property contains a string, where previously it contained a number. Very important thing to keep in mind, that the type of individual properties may change in real time. In fact, if you are using this set property in, which is a kind of a more primitive way to assign individual property, you can still modify the type, and just whatever was there before will go away. New data type, new value will override it. That's all I have prepared for you for this lesson. We'll continue exploring objects. There are quite a few things that go along with it, and it's going to be an enjoyable ride. Thank you for watching this video, guys, and as always, happy codeless coding.